You know that feeling when you're trying to really get your head around something complex, but you feel like you're missing the key bit.
Yeah, like swimming in information, but not quite reaching the shore.
Exactly. So that's what we do here. We take those big ideas, the stuff you want to understand deeply, and we dive in. We pull out the essentials.
Give you that aha moment without needing weeks of reading. We sort through the noise for you.
And today, we're diving into surrender. Which, okay, sounds maybe a bit passive.
It can sound that way initially, yeah. But our source material, excerpts from Zen Therapy Cones by Gian M. Blonstein, who's both a Zen master and a therapist, interestingly shows it's, well, much more dynamic.
Right, so forget just dictionary definitions. Our mission today, to really unpack what this text means by surrender and, what it could mean for your own growth, your well-being.
Let's get into it. The first thing that really struck me was how it's introduced. It says surrender is like breathing air.
Breathing air, how so?
Well, there's no need to force it. You just gently recognize the consciousness that is always present. It's pointing to something innate, effortless almost.
Okay, that's interesting because my first thought is, okay, how do I do surrender? How do I try harder at it?
Right. But the text warns against that straight away.
Right.
It says, the faster the way, the longer the path.
Counterintuitive.
Totally. The less resistance we encounter, the speedier we will remain flying into nowhere. It's like trying too hard to not resist actually creates its own kind of tension.
So pushing for it pushes it away.
Yeah.
And what about this idea of needing to appear first?
Yes. Without first fully appearing, disappearing becomes a self-indulging play of hide and seek. You can't really let go of something or surrender to it if you haven't fully faced it, right?
Okay, so you need that presence first. You can't bypass the actual experience.
Exactly. You have to acknowledge what is before you can truly allow it to be or change.
Now, the text makes this really important distinction, doesn't it, between two different kinds of surrender?
It does, yeah. This is key. First, there's what it calls a trauma-related coping mechanism.
Okay.
This is driven by self-hatred, apparently. It's where someone might constantly sacrifice themselves, their needs. It's surrender as like self-negation.
That sounds really heavy, almost like giving up on yourself.
It does feel that way, but then it contrasts this with surrender through the heart.
Through the heart.
Yeah. This comes from self-compassion. It's not forced. It leads to this natural overflow and expansion over time. It's organic growth, not depletion.
Wow. Okay. So same word, surrender, but completely different sources and outcomes. One from self-hatred, one from self-compassion.
That's the core insight, I think. The why behind the surrender changes everything.
And there's that lovely butterfly analogy, too. Look, but don't touch anything.
Mm-hmm. It will land on you when the time is right. It's about gentle observation, loving kindness, just allowing things to integrate without grabbing at them.
Which ties into the non-manipulation thing, right? Acting with as little involvement, manipulation, trying to change, transform, or fix feelings.
Spot on. It's about allowing, not controlling, letting things unfold.
And that line, let surrender come to you. Do not try so hard. It feels like a weight off, doesn't it?
It really does. It is already there, which is why you are seeking it. It suggests it's not something external to achieve, but something inherent to recognize.
Like tuning into a frequency that's already playing.
Kind of, yeah. And then it broadens out the perspective even more. We are not only the clouds, but also the empty sky.
In which clouds come and go.
I love that.
Not only the waves, but also the ocean itself.
It's reminding us we're bigger than our fleeting thoughts and feelings. There's a deeper constancy.
Okay, so we have this picture of surrender as gentle, allowing, already present. But let's be real, it's often hard. Why is that? The text talks about fear, a shadow side.
Right. The fear and shadow of surrender. A big root, according to the text, is a fear of authority.
Authority, like bosses or...
It seems broader, often stemming from past trauma where, yielding control led to bad outcomes. Losing control felt dangerous.
It makes sense. If letting go meant getting hurt, you'd resist letting go.
Absolutely. And the shadow side of that fear can look like submission, but also this hesitance to support oneself because there's a fundamental lack of self-trust.
So you don't trust yourself to handle things if you let go of the reins.
Something like that. And this inner mistrust can get projected outwards. We might avoid confrontation, see threats everywhere.
It becomes a cycle. Fear breeds more fear.
Mm-hmm. And then there's that fascinating bit about the rebellious despise of power.
Yeah, what was that about? Rejecting power because we're scared of controlling others.
Kind of. It suggests that sometimes our strong reaction against authority might actually be protecting us from facing our own potential power and the responsibility that comes with it.
Whoa! So rebelling isn't just about the external thing, it's about avoiding our own internal capacity.
That's the idea presented. It can even lead to defiant and self-destructive behavior as a way to avoid stepping into that personal power.
That's a lot to chew on. And then it brings up the inner Hitler. That's a jarring phrase.
It is intense, yeah. But the text uses it symbolically, representing our darkest potential for cruelty and domination, the shadow aspects we really don't want to look at.
So why bring that up? It sounds terrifying.
Because, the text argues, acknowledging this shadow, understanding our capacity for darkness is crucial. It's how we integrate it and transform it into a source of strength and wisdom.
So facing the worst in ourselves helps us become stronger, wiser.
Paradoxically, yes. By owning that potential, we're less likely to be ruled by it unconsciously or projected onto others. It leads to a healthier relationship with power, internal and external.
Okay, so acknowledging the fear, the shadow, even the really dark stuff.
Yeah.
How do we actually integrate it? What does the text suggest for healing?
Well, it stresses things like critical self-awareness, deep self-reflection, wisdom, and compassion, the inner work.
Standard but essential stuff.
Right. And it also mentions the value of a teacher sometimes acting as a mirror to help us see past our usual conditioned beliefs.
Getting an outside perspective.
Exactly. And the path forward involves really accepting that fear of authority, that aversion to power we might have, moving from that reactive state of fear or rebellion
Towards what it calls empowered autonomy and balanced authority.
Precisely. Finding a more centered, less reactive way of being with power.
Okay, moving on slightly. The text distinguishes between letting go and letting be. They sound similar. What's the difference?
It's subtle but important. It says let go while feeling and feel while letting go.
Ah, so they're connected. You can't just intellectually let go.
Right. The feeling part is essential. These two processes support and complete each other. It warns against extremes, too. Clinging obviously causes suffering.
But letting go too much leads to a mental void, like becoming detached or spaced out.
Yeah, losing connection. So the sweet spot the text suggests is letting it be.
Letting it be. And it calls this the playful balance. I like that. Less heavy.
It suggests a lighter touch, an acceptance of what is, without needing to aggressively push it away or cling desperately.
Which seems to connect to the next idea. Synchronicity and participation. How does that work?
Well, the text proposes that if you learn to participate with minimal resistance, you'll experience synchronicity.
Like things just clicking into place. Serendipity.
From one serendipitous event to the next, exactly. It implies that by reducing our internal struggle against life, we align more naturally with its flow.
The analogy used is breathing underwater. That's powerful, like being completely immersed in an ease.
Yeah, true mindfulness, where everything just works. And practically it suggests engaging more fully with less resistance in everyday things, music, movement, conversations.
But the focus is internal change, right? Not just following external rules.
Absolutely. The purpose is to bring about inner change, rather than blindly following ideologies of others. It's about transforming your own relationship with reality.
It really makes you think about how much our own internal friction might be creating external bumps in the road.
It's a compelling idea. And then building on this, the text talks about surrender as self-defense. Now that sounds like a contradiction.
Right. How is surrendering defending yourself?
It explains it through the idea of a warrior's fearlessness, not being aggressive, but having the ability to keep his heart open even when faced with mortal danger.
An open heart in danger. That takes courage.
Immense courage. True power, it says, isn't about brute force or even needing to love everything, but maintaining that open heart and mind towards both our own darkness and the world's negativity.
So by understanding and being at peace with our own inner conflicts, our dark side,
we can reduce the chances of attracting aggression in dangerous situations. It suggests that inner peace radiates outwards and is less likely to provoke conflict. It neutralizes the need for conventional self-defense, in a way.
Wow. Defending yourself by becoming less reactive and more internally whole.
That seems to be the essence. It's proactive peacemaking, starting within.
Okay, from the philosophical to the practical, the text brings up horse stance qigong, a specific exercise.
Yes, as a foundational practice. It mentions benefits like leg strength, stability, core engagement, cultivating energy or ki, and mental discipline. Pretty standard qigong benefits.
But how does holding a potentially uncomfortable stance relate directly to surrender?
Because, as the text puts it, it teaches you physical surrender. You have to yield to gravity, breathe